Well, it's not a major surprise, but it is official. Deacon Hill is leaving the University of Iowa. The big quarterback is on his way out. He's in the transfer portal. What does that mean for the quarterback position for the Hawkeyes? We break it down today. Locked on Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts, and you can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, hit that subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or on Google Play. Here we go. Quarterback conversation in late April. Yes, it's something that definitely is a conversation piece, and it's happening at your convenience store, at your local watering hole. It's happening wherever you go. People talking about the Iowa quarterback position, and what this is going to look like now is Deacon Hill has entered the transfer portal. Deacon Hill, a year ago, became the starter after the injury to Cade McNamara, and though it was very uneven, there were a few moments in there overall. Look, I'm not here to absolutely kill the kid. We did plenty of that last fall, and we saw throughout the course of the fall, he's just not good enough to be a starting quarterback in the Big Ten. But the thought was at minimum, this would be a guy maybe that would hang around, that'd be willing to do just that he would hang around, know that he's going to be the backup, and if a situation would arise like it did a season ago, maybe he'd go out there. The problem with that is the scar tissue that built up inside the fan base watching the ineptitude of the offense a year ago. And there's plenty of blame to go around. It was not just a Deacon Hill problem. It was an offensive line problem. It was an offensive coordinator problem. It was a head coach problem. It was so many different things all coupled together that led to the ineptitude a season ago. We were waiting for a change, I think most of us, from Spencer Petras, and excited about Cade McNamara. The problem, Cade McNamara got injured, and what we saw last season certainly was not at the level. But boy, just going back and looking at the numbers once again from Deacon Hill a year ago, and when you just see them down on paper, he goes 122 of 251, 48.6%. In 1972, you could get away with that. Not in 2024. 5 touchdowns against 8 interceptions, 1,152 yards, a quarterback rating of 87.4. Quarterback rating 87.4, that's pretty good if you're using the NFL system, not the college system. That goes well over 200. No, that is not a good quarterback rating. You look through the individual games, he didn't throw a touchdown over the final 3 games of the season. Of course, Iowa did not score a point against Tennessee and against Michigan in the final 2 games of the year. In the last victory of the season, the win against Nebraska, he goes 11 of 28 for 94 yards in that one. Just time in and time out, it was ugly. The accuracy was not even close. And because of that, you saw a guy that was unplayable. But that's all they had. Or at least that's all that they believed that they had. And this is maybe the most disappointing part of the way this played out. We saw very quickly that Deacon Hill wasn't the answer. He goes in the Michigan State game after McNamara tears the ACL there. Iowa gets the win. Of course, it was the Cooper DeJean playing that one, but he goes 11 of 27 in that game. The following time out, he's 6 of 21 against Purdue, but Iowa wins the game. He's 6 of 14 against Wisconsin for 37 yards passing, but Iowa wins the game. A long LaShawn Williams touchdown, the big difference maker in that football game. Iowa raced out, and Wisconsin didn't have an answer and couldn't move the football. It was the defense. Like, you can't talk about win-loss record. You just can't. The win-loss record goes to the defense. Goes for the most part of the season to the special teams. If you want to put a win-loss record, that's where you're going. It wasn't the quarterback. It's simpleton thinking. You have to think a little bit deeper. It wasn't Deacon Hill, and we saw it right away. The unfortunate part, though, is that they kept trotting him out there. And there were times you just felt bad for him because he saw the talent wasn't there. He wasn't talented enough to be a quarterback at this level. He just couldn't make the throws necessary to be that kind of guy. There are a few moments, there are a few plays, but come on. At this level, you need a whole lot more than just that. And we didn't see it. But because of Kirk Ferentz and company's inability to have a young guy ready to go, Marco Lainez, as we saw in the bowl game, certainly could run. He was an athlete. He wasn't a quarterback. Because of their unwillingness to play Joe Labus a year ago, one of the more confounding angles of this one, and just quarterback play in general. Kirk Ferentz has one of the oddest things that I have ever seen in his stranglehold at the quarterback position and his unwillingness to change. And what we've seen recently with Spencer Petras, going back multiple times throughout his career, the Jake Christensen to Ricky Stanzi transition that took forever, even Jake Rudock into CJ Beathard. It was incredibly difficult for Kirk Ferentz to make those moves. And yet you go back to early in his career, he was shuffling quarterbacks all the time. It was Scott Mullen, and it was John Butcher, and it was on and on and on. He was playing all kinds of guys. Weird. Incredibly odd. Cade McNamara's got to feel good about that. But Iowa has to find another quarterback now. It's a must. James Rezar, probably not the answer. Incredible athlete, not a very good quarterback. What we've seen from Marco Lainez, there's improvement there. And going back to Saturday and what you saw in the practice, I think he outplayed for stretches Deacon Hill. Here's another thing, and let's think about this a little bit deeper. I've seen a lot of angst out there that Deacon Hill throughout spring practice, and then 2 days later after the final practice of the spring season, he enters the portal and people are all pissed off about it, that he was getting all the number one reps. Well, think about this. Tim Lester explained this to us. And at this point in time, I am willing for a new guy to listen to what they say and believe it. There are times when you get to know a coach a little bit more, maybe that becomes a little bit more difficult. But for a new guy, I am willing to give him a little extra leash. Tim Lester said it before we even got to Saturday. Last week at the media day with the three coordinators, as all of them spoke, Tim Lester said the reason that they were going that route, that Deacon Hill was a starter, Marco Lainez was working with both the twos and the threes. Two reasons for it. First, you're getting more reps for Marco Lainez. I think that's a good thing. More reps for a guy that definitely needs it as a quarterback. Learning progressions, not just one read and run. There has to be more into that, and getting more reps is a good thing to make that happen. But secondly, and I think most importantly, Deacon Hill can run the offense the way they're going to run the offense with Cade McNamara. If Cade is ready to go and healthy by September, all systems go, no concerns about the ACL tear, he's good, and he should be. In today's day and age, absolutely an ACL tear, it's not like it once was. We're not talking about some kind of injury that is going to be debilitating for years and years and years. That's not the case anymore with ACL tears. And unless something went terribly wrong or something goes wrong in rehab, we shouldn't even have a concern. But it bears at least mentioning. Let's say that. The offense still that they're going to run. Are there going to be RPO elements? Absolutely. Are there going to be chances for Cade McNamara to have to tuck it and run? Sure. That was part of his game when he was a starter at Michigan. He'll be a starter here. You're going to see that element. He's not a runner. He's not Brad Banks. He's not Kyler Murray. He's not that kind of guy. But he can tuck it and get a first down. He can keep it if a defensive end crashes down and pick up 8 yards. He can do those things, and the expectation is he'll be able to do them when we get to September. Having Deacon Hill in that spot as opposed to Marco Lainez and having the other 10 guys, and that's how Lester explained it. It's also for the other 10 guys, for them to understand and them to realize what this is going to be, what this offense is going to look like, and what we're looking to do. And Deacon Hill at this point in his career had a better ability to do that than Marco Lainez. Think a little deeper. It makes a whole lot more sense. Where does Iowa go from here? They need a backup quarterback. Lainez is not the answer. Rezar's not the answer. They need a dude. Where are they going to turn? Plus, how did we get to this point? Mentioned at the top, but like Deacon at least would stick around. Got a little story for you. We'll do that as we continue talking quarterbacks in Iowa football. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Well, it is playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Had some crazy games going on. Absolutely love it. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers out there, how about this? You get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's right, guaranteed. $150, win or lose. Love the sound of that one over at FanDuel Sportsbook. You can bet on everything. Slap shots, home runs, slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and it's so easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet. How about this? An automatic win. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Trent Condon back with you once again on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Deacon's in the portal. How did he get there? So this is a story that was passed along. I am not a newsbreaker. I am not somebody that goes out there, but I will tell you when I hear some rumblings. And if I think there is at least some credibility to them. And this one I think is credible. This isn't multiple sources. This is not me reporting things. Just a story that was passed along to me. Deacon Hill and his quote-unquote agent, handler, whatever it is. I mean, look, this is goofy. In today's environment of college athletics, with the new rules of NIL, you're a professional sport athlete, you have an agent. That's not the case in college sports. It could be your buddy. It could be a guy that's your neighbor. Be a guy you met in chemistry class. You don't really have to have any kind of background to become a quote-unquote agent in today's environment of college athletics, which is incredibly scary and something that needs to be fixed, but that's what it is. There's a former basketball player that just had a buddy that's 24 years old. That was his quote-unquote agent. I mean, that's what we're dealing with right now and some of the things. But the way the story was relayed to me is that Deacon's handlers went to the Swarm Collective, the coaching staff, and said, I need more. I possibly could be the starting quarterback as a Big Ten team. And the going rate for a starting quarterback at the Power 5 level is a lot more than I'm getting. I want more. And the coaches and the collective got together and said, we're good. Maybe the portal will be the best place. Now, I think play is a part of that. The ability to have a scholarship to play around with, as I was still working to get back to the scholarship level of getting down to 85, is also a component here. Tim Lester wants his own quarterback too. Look, when you are an offensive coordinator and you are trying to adjust and change a style of play and play it in a different way than Iowa has under Kirk Ferentz, well, you want to have your kind of guy. You want to have your kind of signal caller. And Tim Lester, as we've seen, he actually has a quarterback background. He's not like the old OC that didn't know what was going on at the quarterback position. This is a guy that actually understands it. It's incredibly damning when you look at the guys and where they've ended up and just how far things have cratered in quarterback recruiting here over the last 5 seasons. It's hideous. I don't think you're going to find anything close to this, certainly at the power structure level. Just the bad quarterbacks, time in and time out, and where they've had to end up. Now, Spencer Petras sounds like he had a good spring at Utah State. People on the beat will say, good for him. Hope it goes well. Is that a great guy? And you hear the same thing about Deacon Hill. But come on. If that story is true, that Deacon was looking for a little bit more, come on, man. We saw it. You're not worth more right now. You got to prove more. And going for asking for more, but that's also another part of college athletics, and he's not alone. There's been other guys inside the Iowa program that have asked for more. Most of them have not received it. We know what they did and made it worthwhile for a Jay Higgins, a Nick Jackson, a Quinn Schulte, those kind of players to come back. But for Deacon Hill, tough one to swallow. We'll see on that front. So one name that is out there, and Chad Leistikow from the Des Moines Register, he was the first to bring up this name, is Brennan Sullivan. Quarterback that you saw last year for Northwestern in the game at Wrigley. He's had some nice performances throughout the course of his career. Most people believed he was going to be the starter again this season for the Wildcats. And on the same day that Deacon Hill enters the transfer portal, he also enters the transfer portal. Now, the one connection there is Tim Lester did recruit him out of high school. He had an offer from Western Michigan, and you would anticipate a quarterback, a head coach, would probably have a pretty good idea of the kind of quarterback he's going to go after. And certainly conversations were likely happening between Tim Lester and Brennan Sullivan. That would make a whole lot of sense. He has 2 years of eligibility left. He can come in, compete for the job with Cade McNamara coming up in August camp. And even if he is the backup, knowing the injury history of Cade McNamara, I think that's a way that this becomes a much easier sell than it would have been just a few months before. Coupled with, Even if you're not the starter this year, you got a huge leg up going into 2025. That, I think, is a selling point for Sullivan and something that you can do. Pretty athletic kid, can move around, accuracy, all right, not great. But again, we're talking about a changing and evolving offense. And because of that, that is going to be a big piece of this, of finding that kind of quarterback, somebody that can get it out quick, get it out to the receivers, get it out to the players out in the flat, get it to Caleb Brown and let him do his thing. That's what we're looking at here. And that's what we're going to be looking at going forward, we hope, with this new look offense coming up this season. Speaking of that, bring up Caleb Brown. And I have incredibly high hopes. He had a couple of tough drops late in the season, but we still saw enough wiggle out of him. The dude played at Ohio State, played as a true freshman at Ohio State. Here's another one. Played as a true freshman at Ohio State in one of the deepest wide receiver rooms 2 years ago in the country. Maybe over the last 10, 15, 20 years. That wide receiver room was nuts, and he played 4 games. And he played 4. He would have played more, but they wanted to maintain his redshirt status. Ohio State thought he was going to be very good. Brian Hartline believed he was going to be very good, and we saw enough. Got to be more consistent. Still learning the position. Remember, he was a running back, but he is an absolute stud. And now, right now, on campus, is Raylan Sharp, wide receiver that began his career down at Houston. Elite speed. We like the sound of that. Elite speed. There's a starting point. Not a big guy, 5'9". Yes, we would all love that big X wide receiver, right? The big outside guy, 6'3", 215 pounds, go up and get the football. We'd all love to get them. They're not easy to get. And certainly at a place like Iowa, not easy. But a guy like Sharp, gettable. You look at the other offers, nobody else I've seen at this point out of the power structure. North Texas was the presumed favorite, close to his hometown. New Mexico State was involved. A couple other programs like that. Look, I was his best offer. You can argue maybe not his best offer as a wide receiver until we prove it, but here comes the hope. And it's up to John Budmeyer and Tim Lester and the rest of the staff to get him to realize very quickly that this is going to be different this year. Yeah, that kind of speed with Caleb Brown. I think you have good things with Wetchen. We saw him kind of as a gadget player a year ago. Can Seth Anderson ever get healthy? Boy, that's a huge question mark at this point in time. And then one of the young guys start to pop, right? Can he get one of those guys ready to go? Is it a Jarrett Bowie that's able to jump up and make plays for you? There's some hope there as a redshirt freshman. Those kind of guys. Dayton Howard. Speaking of big guys, he's got the size at 6'4" that you're looking for that big X wide receiver. Do you go that route? I was still going to run a ton of 2 tight end personnel. It's Iowa's strength with Lachey and Estrenga and the depth that they have behind it. No doubt about it, that is going to be a huge, huge component of what they're going to do. Speaking of the scholarship limit, another departure in the transfer portal, and that is Cale Vanderbush. And talking about the tight end position, there just wasn't playing time. Wasn't going to happen. And this is going to happen from time to time. These are the kind of players that you're looking at. Guys that have been around for a couple of seasons, don't see a realistic path to getting on the field, not just this year, but maybe over the next couple of seasons. These are the guys that likely are going to be departing and we're looking at. Nothing significant, nothing major. There could also be some injury retirements. We've seen that happen quite a bit throughout the years. That's a potential. A lot of those guys decide to stay on campus and complete their degree. They're able to still be on scholarship, just not football scholarship, a hardship scholarship, and maintain that status and go that route. And a lot of times those guys also will stay around the game and become a student assistant, something like that, and go that route. So that is what's out there right now. We'll see if some new names emerge, pop, but remember, we're running out of days. April 30th, the portal closes again. And where is going to be the landing spots for some of those players out there? Something to keep an eye on, certainly because there just aren't a ton of quarterbacks in the portal right now. Certainly ones that would make a whole lot of sense for Iowa and what they're going to do for this upcoming season of 2024. Well, coming up, we got the NFL draft. We're going to talk a little bit about Cooper DeJean, the Pied Piper of Western Iowa. Just a guy that was so fun to watch. And where we think he's going to go. We'll talk about that, a little NFL draft talk for you here today, plus some other news and notes in Hawkeye land as we continue. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by Monopoly Go. That's right, Monopoly Go. I'm a competitive person. You may be as well. Well, if you have a competitive side, I think we all do. It's a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you heard about it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in all kinds of wild locations, building up great cities that bring you big money. Best part, screwing around with your friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like in classic Monopoly. But now I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboard show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. It's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments and earn huge rewards. Go get in the game right now and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store or Google Play. Once again, just search Monopoly Go. Today's episode is also brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. Makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. Killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seats, and they have the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying all kinds of tickets, including MLB. Save even more in the app. They have deals on select seats right ahead of the game or event that you're looking for. And one of my favorite things, the view from the seat. Know exactly where you're going to be inside the stadium, inside the arena. Maybe you got tickets for a show. Wherever it is, they got you covered and see exactly what it's going to look like once you get inside the building. Plus, the lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. So we got the NFL draft coming up here on Thursday evening, and that means a potential another number one pick in the first round, a first round pick for Iowa football. Kirk Ferentz and the way that he has built this program, getting these guys ready to play at the next level, just the way that it's been built up and the understanding. When you draft an Iowa guy, more times than not, you're going to have a guy ready to go. And there's not a whole lot of question marks about them. Are they going to have maybe the highest ceiling of some other guys out there? For the most part, no. But you're going to get a solid football player. You're going to get a football player that's going to be well coached, that's going to understand how to play the game at a high level, and you get that time in and time out. But it's wild. And you think of all the great defensive backs and what Phil Parker's been able to do, and all the defensive back of the year awards that he has won, and Micah Hyde and Desmond King and Bob Sanders, and on and on and on. This is going to be, if Cooper DeJean is selected in the first round, the first defensive back selected in the Kirk Ferentz era, 25 years. You have to go back to Tom Knight, 1997, I believe it was, the last time Iowa had a defensive back selected in the first round. One of the more just kind of baffling numbers because of how many great defensive backs that they've had, how many guys have been around in the league for so long, but haven't had a first rounder since then. We'll see if that's going to be changing with DeJean. Probably the high end that you're looking at, the highest you're going to hear is maybe 16 at Seattle. Now, the Seahawks need work on the offensive line. They do need cornerback help. That's a potential destination, 16, 17 in that range. No, the Packers, it's been mocked a lot, them at 25, the potential that they go that direction. They've had a lot of success as well with Iowa players, though the last cornerback, Joshua Jackson, didn't go as well as we've seen. But overall, Green Bay has had a lot of good guys go through there, and I think that would be a potential landing spot. 22 with the Eagles, that's another spot that makes a whole lot of sense. In fact, some of the numbers out there at FanDuel, I had them at least earlier in the week that I looked. The over-under for Cooper DeJean in the draft selection was 22.5, and there's the Eagles at 22. So something that you can wager on, always fun there. We got to see this guy that shows up. You saw the highlight videos. If you watched him in high school, running around making plays, he's out there, incredible athlete. They snap him the ball at Odebelt, Arthur, Battle Creek, Ida Grove, and he's out there just making plays because he's a better athlete than everybody else, right? But that's one thing to do in 2A football. It's another in the Big Ten. So then, shows up on campus, little special teams. He's going to be a defensive back. All right, we'll figure it out. And then late in this freshman season, I was hit hard at the cornerback position. Oh, we got to play him. Here's one thing. Dude had never played cornerback before he showed up in Iowa City. Not as a little kid, not in junior high, not in high school. You've been a safety. You've been a defensive back. I never played cornerback, and the first time he does it in a Big Ten football game and did it well. And then his sophomore year, pick sixes, 5 interceptions. This past season, not nearly the amount of passes going his way, but we saw the season he put together. Coupled with his return skills, he's incredible. His videos in high school, not on the football field, but on the basketball court, are one of the most jaw-dropping things that I have ever seen. A 6'1" guy just drop step dunking over dudes all over the place. The elite athleticism. I'm betting on Cooper DeJean. He's going to get it done. Is it a cornerback? Is it a slot corner? Is it a safety? Is it a hybrid position? I don't care. Whatever it is, figure it out. Get him out there, and he will do it at a high level. And how great will that be? Kid from Western Iowa, playing for the Hawks and doing those kind of things. It's been special. And though probably the most memorable play of his career will be one that will go down in infamy on the fair catch, non-fair catch call against Minnesota. And we were robbed as fans of that moment and the elation as I was there of everybody inside the stadium was taken away. But we got so many good moments in Cooper DeJean. And it's unfortunate how it ended. And trying to help the team out, working on offense, trying to figure out a way to get this offense in any way and putting your best athlete over there. Hope for a great career. I think you're going to get it. Cooper DeJean, that kind of dude, and looking forward to see where it is. Now, as a Bears fan, if it's in Green Bay, that's a little bit more difficult, right? But when they're probably beating my Bears again, yes, I'm relatively optimistic about the Bears and what they're going to do in the draft coming up on Thursday. But yeah, too much. It's been a rough 3 decades now against the Packers. We'll just put it that way if Cooper ends up in Green Bay. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Appreciate each and every one of you out there. Also wanted to let you know the Locked On NFL Mock Draft is now available. It's the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft. You can hear from the local Locked On experts. They're picking for every NFL franchise, live reactions from local college football experts, and even a fantasy football angle. It's the Locked On NFL Mock Draft, now available on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Here, Locked On Hawkeyes, we got you covered. Some more portal news coming up on the men's basketball front. What is happening over there? We will tackle that. We'll talk about where Cooper DeJean ends up, and we got a whole lot more. Your team every day. That's what we do here across the Locked On Network. And thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.